Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a project that is very much indeed inspired by this puzzle here. Now, although I made this puzzle probably about 2 weeks ago, I only made the video yesterday, and I was surprised to see just how many people actually like this puzzle. I mean, I don't, but a lot of people seem to like it, so I appreciate that. But I wasn't happy with the execution of it. Now I'm going to explain ways to get around all of the things that I did in a video in the future, because I have learned a lot since then, and I hope I can at least explain it to you all so we can all learn from it. But that puzzle was the direct inspiration for a bandage modification that I wanted to make today. Now I'm going to be using epoxy sculpt for this one because I feel like I haven't used it for a bandage mod for a while and I miss how it works, and I also want this puzzle to look really nice. And I'm taking inspiration also from my handlebar bandage cube that I made in a previous video. Now if you want to see how I built this, then I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video, or you can click the little card thing. Where is it? Over here somewhere. And what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be using the handlebar part of it to bandage two edge blocks together. Now with this puzzle here, you'll notice that I can turn these two layers just fine, and I can also move this center layer, but these two edges are held completely in place. Now I can't just glue two edge blocks together because I'll be able to move those edge blocks around the puzzle, and that doesn't make a true analog of this puzzle for just one of these cubes. So what I have to do is I have to bridge the connection and hold them together with one of these handlebars. So that's the idea for this modification. It's not really going to be that complex, it's just a bandage modification as per usual, but I'm excited to see how it turns out. I'm also excited to do another handlebar mod because I really like them, and from what I saw in the comment section, you guys do as well. So let's get started.
Alright, so to start this puzzle off, I was going to be marking out all the areas that I was going to glue together. So I got my Sharpie out and I just drew a couple of lines on the pieces. And after that was all looking good, I got my super glue out and I dripped it between the pieces. Now it's important to note that when I do this, I'm not trying to fuse the pieces together permanently, I'm just trying to hold them together temporarily, that way when I disassemble the puzzle, I can fuse them together more properly. So with all that in mind, I took the center cap out and then I disassembled the puzzle, I pulled those two pieces out and then I glued them together properly. There's no right or wrong way to do this, you just gotta glue as far down as you can and make sure you get a good bond between the pieces. And after that was done, everything was looking good, so I got some epoxy sculpt out and I pressed it between the pieces to fill all of the gaps. I waited for the epoxy sculpt to cure, and after everything had hardened, it was time to sand the pieces down so that I could reassemble the puzzle. So I took them over to my belt sander, but I didn't turn my belt sander on. I decided to do this without power. Now this may look like a pretty derpy thing to do, but there is actually some logic behind it. You see, I'm trying to sand a flat surface, and the belt sander is the flattest surface that has sandpaper on it that I have at my disposal. So I just did circles and figure eights of the pieces along the track of the belt sander without it turned on, and eventually I had sanded down to a flat surface. After I was done with that, I turned the belt sander on its side, and then I started to sand the inside edge of the pieces. The reason I'm doing this without the belt sander turned on is because I feel like the belt sander is a little too aggressive just to sand a couple small pieces, and I've noticed this in the past that I end up sanding a little too far down, so I'm just trying this out. I was actually surprised with how well it worked, and I think I'll be doing it in future. But anyways, I finished sanding the pieces and they were all looking good, so it was time to round them off with a nail file. And after everything was sanded down, I took it over to some Scotch-Brite and then I rounded off all of the small burrs and sharp edges. I reassembled the puzzle to check the movement, and as you can see here, everything was turning just fine. If I really wanted to, I could paint this puzzle up right now and then sticker it up, but I wanted to continue on with the handlebar section of this modification. I had some wire or rod stuck. I'm not exactly certain at what point wire becomes rod, but I had some of this lying around, and I marked out the dimensions that I needed to bend it to, and then I took it over to my vise and I got some pliers out and I bent it to the correct shape. So now it was time to fuse the handlebar to the puzzle. So I got out the clamp and I clamped the puzzle up so that it wouldn't turn while I was drilling into it. This is actually something that I've had as a problem in the past. My drill bits tend to bite into the plastic, and so I often have to clamp the puzzle down just to prevent it from turning freely. I'm actually not entirely certain as to whether or not there are some proper plastic drill bits. I'll have to do some more research into that, but these ones are made from metal and they really like to bite into the plastic. But anyways, I drilled holes into the pieces, and then I inserted the handlebar, and then I glued it in place. There isn't really much of a knack to this, it's just gluing something in place, and it looked pretty good, so after I was done with that, I painted it up, and then I sticked it up, and here it is, the handlebar bandage cube is complete. Now, as you can see, this puzzle turns much as you'd expect and very similar to the quadruple Siamese cube that I showed off in my previous video, and it is also a perfect analog of that puzzle. This puzzle turns really well. It's actually one of the best turning bandage cubes I've made for a while. I don't really know what I did differently with this one, but it just seems to turn so much nicer, and I believe that has something to do with the epoxy sculpt that I used to fill the pieces. As I've showed previously in this series, I've been doing a lot of no epoxy bandage cubes, and although I still recommend them for beginners, I really think that a higher quality material is definitely where it's at for these modifications. But anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.